to sa aton ng mga student writers. So from DevCom, moving on, proceed to another interesting topic here. We have the writing for science, health, and environment. So our speaker is Dave Albao. So Dave Albao is the Executive Director of the Philippine Reef and Rainforest Conservation Foundation and a trustee of the Association of Young Environmental Journalists. Dave Albao hosted a podcast of Our True Nature on Spotify, a spring 2016 professional fellow in environmental sustainability in the US, and a 2021 Gen T Leader of Tomorrow, being awarded as one of the 2019 10 accomplished youth organizations along. Dave is also a reef check scuba diver, a free diver, and currently writing a sci-fi novel. So, my friends, our student writers, we have here again our next speaker, Dave Albao.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me po?
Good afternoon. Yes, sir. May hapon.
Nga po.
Good afternoon, sir.
Ay, wow. Okay, thank you. Okay, sige, so this afternoon, we're going to talk about a lot of different formats of writing, no? Di ba, a lot of you are probably aware, for example, I think sa kanina's introduction, you were discussing news writing, di ba? Then you can do react there, yung sa reactions, hard react ba kung news writer ka mo? News writers, hard react naman siya. Okay. Feature writers, react naman kamo sa lain naman na reaction, di hard. Let's say, ang thumbs up, feature writers. Check ko tabi kung di mas damo, news or feature. Di ba ta, news writers hard, thumbs up kung feature. Kung news kag feature yung mo ginasulat, pwede man doon kalawa mo siya i-press. How about editorials, opinion, column, writers? Editorial, column, or opinion writers? Ano naman, lain naman yung reaction niya. Palakpak, applause, editorials, editorial writers. Okay. Now, you can react using the laughing emoji if it's your first time in a training like this. Like, you don't know yet kung ano yung format nga para gid sa imo kag you're just learning for the first time. Okay, I can see some are like that. Okay. Ma-request ko na isa to nga PIA if we can stop sharing the screen so I can see the participants. Mayong hapon sa inyo tanan. If you don't understand Hiligay non, please chat me privately so that I can speak English 100%. But I will do my best, of course, to deliver to you the topic, writing for science, health, and environment. Okay, so question, pag ginagawa mo ko news writers, feature writers, editorial writers, di naman yung mga science writers or science, writing for science, health, and environment. So I have to be clear with you that writing for science, health, and environment can take the format of news, it can take the format of feature, it can take the format of editorial. Okay, by the end of this 1 hour with me, you, or until 2:45, you will be assigned to write a news feature. Okay? So, combination of a news and feature. And you will learn later, after my session, you will learn how to do news writing, feature writing, may mga speakers ka mo sinadira sa specific nga format. Okay? So, that means, ang science, writing for science, health, and environment is an overarching theme siya. Okay? It's not a specific format that we're talking about. Alright? Now, watch out. My tip for all of you, when you write news and features, especially for this exercise, by the end of this workshop or training, please do not editorialize. Hindi ka mo mag-editorial or mag-opinion, butang opinion nyo sa inyo nga news or feature. What, for example, usually pag environment writers, sa environment, especially if you're writing for environment, no, sometimes you begin or you end with statements like this. I'll give you an example. We should act now. Otherwise, the world will not survive. Iwaton ko a statement, a sentence in your write-up that says, we should act now, otherwise the world will not survive. People should work together, blah, 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 blah. So that those are editorialized statements. Those are not, those are not, how do you call this? Parang non-biased na mga statements. So you actually already have a bias. You're telling people what to do. And later you will distinguish between news, feature, and editorial, and you have the opportunity to ask, ano naman niya ang news feature? How does that combine? Okay, are you guys ready to learn about science, health, and environment? Introduction pa lang to ha. So let me repeat. Science writing is not necessarily a specific format. In fact, you can do science stories using even cartooning. You can have science content in your cartooning. No? So why are we starting today's training with this kind of specific theme? No? A lot of our stories lately, if you notice, diba, about sa coronavirus, right? When you were writing about coronavirus, okay, question. So, diba, when you write for coronavirus, usually, let's say, itong time na nag-pandemic, nagamba sila nga ma-wear the mask, right? Ma-wear the masks. So, will you write in your news or feature na parang, we should wear masks? That statement. Can you type in the chat yes or no? Why for yes and for no? A statement like this. Let me repeat. In the news or feature that you're writing, can you write, if you're writing about pandemic, can you write, we should wear our masks? Very good. I love it. Okay. Okay, everyone's saying no now because most of the people are saying no. Yes, but how now would you write it? How would you deliver that message since you need to deliver the message that we need to wear our mask in the news? Diba DevCom kanina, you were doing this to improve the quality of life and so how do you report it though? Like what would you, very good Christine May from Capsule May, the quest, you are going to quote someone. You're going to quote the Department of Health or a specific officer so that you can deliver that kind of message, but you're not the source of the message. Unless it's an editorial or a column, right? So now that's where you can write. For example, you say, the administration just yesterday announced that wearing of masks in private spaces or closed spaces will be optional. That's the end sentence. And then the next sentence would say, that is a mistake. End sentence. When you do that, is that editorial na? I said that is a mistake if we're now going to allow people to wear masks inside indoor spaces, right? So the first sentence was a kind of a news feature sentence, right? Because you're reporting that the administration yesterday announced that wearing of masks will be optional inside indoor spaces. Period. That's a news lead, I guess. That's a news statement. But when you put the second sentence that says that will be a mistake, or that is a mistake, unless you're quoting someone, that is already editorial. Nagets you, man? Peoples of the world. Okay. Wala pa ako kasog. Good. Alright. Let's share the screen. Thank you very much. So my name is Dave Albao. I actually work for a conservation foundation. I will tell you though, my beginning of this work that I'm doing really came from the fact that I was a science journalist or a science reporter when I was growing up. Pagsugod ko, when I started doing press conferences, there was no event for writing for science. So the first National Schools press conference that I attended, it was also the time that they started to introduce science and technology reporting. Okay, that's the term. And wala to yan sa mga division sa area, wala to kami nag-compete. So sa national na lang, ginpili sa region kung sino magsulat. So I joined the contest and I fell in love with science reporting. I came from a science high school. I was the editor-in-chief of the school paper. I was an editorial writer, but I really loved writing in-depth stories or investigative stories when it comes to science issues. For example, ang minahan sa Sipalay, sa Negros, sa Negros, I really wanted to write about that. I also like to write about the ocean, no? So that's where I started, and eventually, no, damo-damo na ko ginintrahan ng obra, and right now I ended up using the same skill sets that I use for the work that I do. So if you are thinking na ano man yung school to paper man, duga-duga ako sa obra. Tapos kapakik mo parents kay ano na, pero padayon lang, because the skills that you're learning, especially for when you're going to start writing for science, health, and environment, and most likely a lot of you will because of the pandemic, di ba? Next slide, please. You have questions, no, that you need to answer. There are questions that we need to answer together as a society. So, is there a cure for the coronavirus? Is there already a cure? Diba? Like, we're gonna have to discuss that. And what if there's gonna be another virus that will emerge? Diba? How you see it's gonna happen again. And for example, it's another question: have 5G networks been causing cancer? Totoo gid bala nga mag 5G ka kuno, you cause it will cause cancer sa mga tao sa palibot, or maging ano na infertile bala lang, hindi ka na bala kabata. Totoo na kuno, di ba lang bag wala ng 5G, right? And how do we better predict super typhoons like Typhoon Odette? Some of you probably experienced that. They say that will happen and happen again. So how do you tell the story of typhoons that are coming and keep on coming to the Philippines? No, so these are just three examples of stories or questions that you would often see being discussed in the news. No, and of course there will be more. So next slide will now tell us that science reporting or writing about science, technology, and environment could actually be fun. It's not just about the diseases, climate change, nga permilang bagyo. It also talks about what's interesting. It's also about looking and moving forward. What can we look forward to? Is it true that there will be flying cars? Have you heard there's already a flying car demo in Dubai? How does that work? For example, if you want to talk about, if let's say you come from a technology school, your school paper in a technology school, you're going to write about, for example, new technology like the flying car. So you are imparting this to your student body, these ideas, para kabaluman sila syempre. But then of course, you have to describe how the car works, right? How does it fly? If you come from an agricultural school, bisan agriculture, dating pinaka-main yung mga courses. Let's say, kanina at the airport, I saw golden rice. Like an advertisement on golden rice. What is golden? It is gold, but it was fortified, I think, with a certain vitamin that it becomes gold, right? So now you have to report that as well. Like, why do we want golden rice? Is this genetically engineered? Is this natural? Is it healthy? Is it safe? So remember that we are in a very, imagine mo na lang subong ka training ta sa Zoom. I mean, who would have thought, right, 2019, or especially during my time, we'd never have journalism workshops on Zoom. It's always in person because we want to write and show it to our mentors. How are we applying what we've learned? No, but see how the world evolved after the pandemic, and this is why it's very important that we have a lot of skilled writers when it comes to identifying correct science and correct and equitable descriptions of technology and environment. All right, so let's go na sa mga skills natin or sa aton na how to do it. Okay, next slide. Okay, medyo may kurit sa screen, but that's okay. You can also try to full screen sa view. Maybe view full screen. I think there's full screen mode. Control L. Hindi sa dalawang pa. Full screen mode. Oh, yeah, there you go. Hey. All right. So, science journalism is not just about also writing. No, it can be broadcasting. It is reporting stories with scientific subject matter. So may science din siya behind it. Hindi siya palagpat basically. Hindi lang siya politics, for example, na what other people are saying, ganyan. Or it's not, example, nagbagyo, di ba may naguba, so report ka lang disaster reporting. Ang science reporting, gina-inshindi mo sa behind sang bagyo nga ina, what caused it to be stronger than the others. For example, what is the speed? Why is it so destructive? Anong kinalain niya sa previous nga storms? Medyo may gina-inshindi mo gidbalahaw. Pero syempre, if your readers are not naman interested in the science, mabore sila. They will be bored reading all the numbers. Nataka na sila sa eskwelahan sa ilang nataka na sila sa ilang mga lecture sa science. Lecture, ano pag sila sa mga news article? Siyempre, no. Okay, so look at this first pointer. Often in a non-technical manner. How do you describe the science in a non-technical manner for an audience of non-scientists? How do you make it simple? That's the magic of science, writing for science, technology, health, and environment. Kuha? Kinalanta ko ang inyong mga reaction if do may. So, for example, I'll give you an example. Anong example naman? Coronavirus, na lang kakilala, nyo naman tanan, di ba? Okay. Siyempre, we know that the coronavirus is not a living organism on its own, right? It attaches itself and replicates itself. Kakawagawa mo na. Basi palagpat. Wala ko na, correct nyo lang ko sa chata. But do you really want to describe the composition of the proteins, the RNA of coronavirus? Maybe if you're writing for really, like ang mga student, ang mga publication is like the New York Times maybe, or ang gabasa sa inyong mga doktor. Pero kung students, I think I will probably start my story with something like, you don't see it in the air, but they're traveling from nose to nose. Something like that, Like, describe mo how the virus is being transmitted, because that's something that they can relate to. Diba? You're not describing, you don't really focus on the super technical content, because that's you're gonna lose. You're not writing a research paper here. You're not writing a thesis, okay? You're writing a story. How do you tell the story and the science behind it? Next pointer, you're writing informative and listen, often entertaining. You need to entertain. Ang sadya sa science reporting is the challenge is how do you make it entertaining? Yeah, yung best science stories are always interesting and funny. Sometimes I find them funny, or to ka sadya balahaw, hindi lang siya straight news. Bisan news pa na siya, may gamay pag siya nga twist. Because you're trying to trying to simplify the science, the complex ideas and jargon. When you say jargon, what is jargon? These are terms that are specific to a certain, certain group of people or industry, no? So hindi mo na maintindihan kung gagamit ka ng jargon. Okay, may example na tibe. Since you've all been through a pandemic, can you share with me some jargon in the chat? Jargon or words that you have just picked up during the pandemic. I'll give you an example. Lockdown.